Thank you, Luca, for launching us. You don't know, but here we had a countdown. It was just 10 seconds, so we didn't wait it too long. So for the ones which are here with us in the hall, I'm very honored to introduce to you some guests. So you know that FAR Talks, it's an initiative which started last year, and we are hosting these talks which have as a purpose the development of the community of new media art, meaning artists, but also audience and also technologists, which are active or want to become active in the field. And this is the first time we are in English because we get international, and we are very honored to have some prominent figures of European new media with us. And I will introduce very shortly them and then kindly ask them to tell us more stuff about what they do. And then when we'll discuss on the talk, we'll have to know more about their activities and the centers they are coming from. So first of all, it's Merel von Helsendingen. I'm thrilled to have you here because you are such a brave person and kind of model for us because we dream really a lot about doing what you already did, Merel, in Amsterdam, which is opening a new media art museum. And we are very eager to find out how you did it. Hello, I hope you can hear us. It doesn't seem. I said a lot of nice words and she's not reacting, so maybe you can check Luca if we have sound, but it doesn't seem. Then we have from Wrocław, Piotr Krajewski. It's always a bit difficult with Polish names because you don't read the whole consonants there, and it's misleading for us. So he's a key figure of East European media and new media scene. He's the initiator and the chief curator of the biennial from Wrocław. And in this position, he is organizing since, I think, 1989, one of the main media art festival of Europe. And then we have Martin Orosz, who, when I started Googling a bit, I said, oh, I want to meet this guy because he studied on one of the key figures of new media art and of media art, and somehow a person who we are very in depth with, and I think he will tell us also about this in a few moments. And he is also working for the Vasarely Museum, which is very connected with new media, and also his work is currently amazingly inspirational because they are opening a new museum in Budapest now, and it's gonna be a light museum, so it will be a lot of new media work there. So until we will get a signal from Luca that we really have sound with Merel, we will assume that she's not hearing us. She's even out of the TV. But please, you're with us? Okay. Martin, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself and your background and how did you got mixed into this field?
Surely. Is it working?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Sorry, I cannot. Can someone like show me the space or anything? I'm looking at a black screen,
Uh,
and I
you,
cannot.
we will. Luca, I think, is trying to do this. Hello, Meryl. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
So we can hear you now. And Luca, are you showing the space to? Can you hear us, Meryl?
Not very well, and I cannot see anything either.
But a bit you can hear us because you've responded quite in time.
Sorry.
We will be trying to solve as soon as possible, and when Luca will tell us that it's worth trying it, we'll come back to you, and we'll try to solve also the sound and the image. Sorry for this. And please.
Yes, I know that we already discussed the format of this panel discussion. However, I would like being reminded how much time I have at disposal.
So for this part, like when you tell us just to be quick, yeah.
Because
we are not.
Actually, I was also prepping a presentation.
I will open it in a few minutes.
With some images.
Yeah. I'll open it now.
That would give you some visual as well, you know, just to see that I'm not talking about imaginary places, but the full reality. So actually, I'm affiliated with a very traditional art museum, the Museum of Fine Arts in Budapest, in Hungary. And one affiliation of this museum is dedicated to one artist, the French-Hungarian artist Victor Vasarely, who was kind of the father of the optical art, what we term op art, that was emerging in the 50s and 60s. And in a way, actually, he was not, this artist was not using a computer or any devices that we would associate today as tools of the new media art. However, with his visual optical vocabulary, he developed a style which is still influencing new media artists. You can scroll over the pictures. Maybe one picture. Just the second slide, please. The second slide, please. The second, yeah. So as you see, he did some iconic emblems and compositions, like he branded the Renault logo in '72. He did the logo for the RTL television channel as well. And he created a museum for his own works, and also a foundation, which was actually one of the first art, science, technology foundation in the world. It was founded in 1976 in Aix-en-Provence in France, in southern France. The next one is this hexagonal building. The hexagon is actually the perimeter of France. You know, that's why hexagon was a very important symbolic, iconographical motif, a geometric form that was associated with a country as well, not just with his own art. What I'm focusing right now is actually to expand the scope of our museum, which is actually is very traditional as well, because it is housed in a very old castle, but that was built in the end of the 17th century, which is not meant to be built as an exhibition space. We are coping now, actually, right now in the crisis, in the midst of the energy crisis, to maintain actually our building and to this is another museum which was already had opened in his birth town. As you can see, this is also housed in a very old building. And the next one is the next slide shows the building that our collection is hosted. So we have, of course, trying to enlarge our scope, also to being able to use new technology to expand the visual experience of Victor Vasarhelyi's optical art. You know, because this is his idea was to paint three-dimensional objects on the two-dimensional canvas, just using two-dimensional elements, but the optical effect that is created is three-dimensional. And he never used any digital tools to create this, just purely scientific observations.
You should know that in my child room, I had a book, really huge book on Vasarhelyi, and that was exactly one of the questions which was completely obsessing me. Is this a sculpture or a painting? And it took me really some time until I started seeing the works for real. And somehow also, if you think about his works in Bobur, which are huge, also they give you like this impression that you float between mediums. You don't know if it's, and that's why I think he's somehow very
his
inspirational.
Art exists between the second and the third dimension, and he was always trying to expand it to the fourth dimension. That's why he co-termed kinetic art, because kineticism, based on his views, was connected to the cinema, the cinematic experience. So he already in the 50s he was dreaming about cinematic works based on his optical vocabulary.
You should know that I started the center, which is called Kinetic, actually, and it's very much inspired by this. And it seems like you have a fascination with pioneers, because Kepes is also a pioneer. And this time we are really talking about somebody which started most of the digital art. And could you just give us some highlights also on his work and how you relate it to current work? And then we'll ask Luca if we are on with Meryl. Okay.
Just put it in very brief sentences. Vasarhelyi and György Kepes actually is two figures who are pretty much connected to each other, because they're both educated. They had the same background. They were studying at the so-called Hungarian Bauhaus in Budapest, which existed from 1928 through the 30s. And Vasarhelyi was emigrated to Paris, whereas Kepes first emigrated to Berlin, then to London, then to Chicago, and he was the co-founder of the new Bauhaus in Chicago, and he set up the first light art department, which was the first workshop at the academic level to study the creative use of light. Light as a creative medium. That was in 1937. And then from Chicago, he got a job at MIT in 1945. And the School of Architecture and Planning at MIT, he created a center, which was, again, the first center which combined science, technology, and art. And he invited established art back then in the 60s, established artists like Stan Vanderbeek, who was one of the first, he did digital animations at the Bell Laboratory, Tokis, the Greek sculptor who used electromagnetic waves to create his works. Otto Pina, you know, the German founder the founder of the German Zero group, which really focusing on light art as a new aesthetic tool in the 60s. And he also actually started to write a book together with László Moholy-Nagy, another important Hungarian figure who was a pioneer of kinetic art. And they started to work a book on light as a kinetic and aesthetic cultural medium. By the way, Kepes coined the term visual culture in the 50s. So this American term, which is a parlance today in the media culture, is also a term he used the first time in one of his book in the 50s. And this book on light art was never published. It is still in a manuscript format, and this will be my next project to edit it and to extend it to contemporary phenomena of light art. And what we are working now, actually, and this is a brand new thing, because this is an old market hall in Budapest, which is out of function because of the COVID. You know, COVID killed the business of this downtown area, which is not residential anymore, and all the offices, you know, they sent their workers to home office, and that's why this market hall was not functional anymore. And our idea was to transform it to, our first idea was to transform it to the digital art museum, but you know, there are a lot of digital art museums in the world, but there isn't any museum. I stress the word museum, because there are some light art centers, like in Unna in Germany, which is next to Essen, and in between Essen and Münster. There was the first light art center, which opened in 2010. And this museum, again, the opening will be next Tuesday. So if you are free and you can join to us for the opening, you are very welcome. And we are concentrating now to, for first exhibition will be on a local level, so only Hungarian light artists will be exhibited. And then our next temporary exhibition, which will be probably in March, we are trying to bring international light artists to fill this wonderful engineered space, because this was I mean, back in the 19th century, this market hall was also a cutting edge architectural place that we would like to rebrand now.
Thank you so much, and it's really interesting to see the new museum, which comes somehow back from such a long-term experience. So somehow, if you wonder how much time does it take to have a great new media culture, if we look at MIT, it's more than 70 years. And if you wonder why there are so many labs which have so successful and amazing projects, like the Tangible Lab or so on, and it's because it's a huge tradition and it's a huge preoccupation to develop this. It's not just happening, you need to pursue this. So, Meryl, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Oh.
Yes, and I can also see you now, which is really nice.
Nice. You should know that I have a performance which actually starts with a fake moment like this, and we just keep trying like to get connected with one guy from Stanford for 30 minutes. This time it's not rehearsed, so thank you so much. You should know that I started asking Martin presenting himself and the museums, because actually he's somehow, let's say, the youngest, like opening a museum which is about to open. You open on Monday.
I'm not the owner of the museum.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just a
but
curator.
you are part of the. You're the curator. Come on. If we go to you, you are a bit older, so you've opened the next museum 3 years ago or 2 years.
Yes, in 2020, August 2020.
Oh, nice, congrats. So this is so one of the reasons why we have, let's say, this gang here is because you all were part of processes of opening a new an institution dedicated to new media or media arts. And if you could please just introduce a bit yourself and your work and also the next museum, and I can also share for the audience here some of the slides, which of course the people which are online will miss, but nevertheless, so just tell me if you want me to open the presentation.
Yes, so I also added a little video. Maybe
you want me to
first
play the video?
Yeah, and then
okay, then I'll play the video and you'll do the talking afterwards, yeah?
Yes, it's very short video.
So we've seen the film.
So that was a very short 30-second clip of our very first opening exhibition called Shifting Proximities. And we have recently launched a second exhibition after surviving pandemic times with lockdowns and heavy financial burdens, let's say. So yeah, I wanted to tell you a little bit about next museum, right? Short intro.
Yes, please.
All right. So if you flick through the slides, then sorry, yeah, I wish I could do it, but and then one further. Great. All right, so next museum is the first new media art museum in the Netherlands. There's been quite a few initiatives and kind of more pop-up spaces. There have been spaces for new media art, but there wasn't one space that brought it all together. So what we did and what we are doing and what our focus is basically the art of the future. So we started speaking to a lot of artists in the new media art space. Myself, I studied film and new media. And Natasha, my business partner, is a spatial designer from Chelsea Art School. And we felt that there was a lot of things happening in terms of tech and arts. There's a lot of work being made. But there wasn't really one place that was housing this art, especially not in the Netherlands. Normally, new media art was put in the basement of a more traditional museum, and then they would ask the artist, can you change the sound? Or can you take off the top? Or can you change the projection? Because we don't have the space for you. And what we actually wanted to do is turn that around and transform an old TV studio into a space for the artists, where they could actually tell us what they needed. We rent the tech that we need, and really give them the space that the tech and art deserve. So our focus is on the future. If you go one slide further, that we really focus on showing the art that is built and made today. And we work with artists that question the future, that talk about topics of today and the future. And there's an incredible amount of museum space for history, for retrospectives, and with respect of that history, we want to push the boundaries forwards. So we are building on the early makers like Herbert Franke or Harm van den Dorpel, or kind of the early tech artists, Namjoon Paik. But we really want to give a space to the artists that are making the art today and that are pushing the boundaries of what a laser can do, what you can build in the virtual world, what an avatar could be, how you could develop a video game like Liu Yang does, and ask the philosophical questions of life by projecting yourself in a tracking suit in your own video game that you can then also play. So this is kind of the type of art we show that's questioning the problems of today and really giving us an insight in the potential future. So if you continue, sorry, I wish I could manage the slides. That would be much easier, but
Me also.
we're basically bringing together. So we're bringing together art, tech, science, and sound. So if you go to the next one, the reason we want to do that is because we wanted to do things differently. So you see here a bunch of kids on their phone and everyone on their device, where there's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful piece of art behind them. So yeah, we wanted to build a space where they actually feel welcome, where the younger generation who grew up with screens, who grew up with tech, actually can relate. But at the same time, pushing them not to be more on their device, but actually pushing them to think about a world where technology has such a prominent role. So if you move forward, we wanted to create kind of a space for a broader audience. So immersive art is a big part of it. Not every room, not every art piece is immersive, but we do feel that the art of today also is developed to be part of it. A bunch of the works are interactive. Some of the works are really kind of emotionally touching you. And we feel that when people are part of it, it triggers a certain emotional response for a generation that is really kind of looking for also experiences that are broadening their mind. So if you continue, then we have basically threefold program. So this is really important. We don't just have an exhibition, but bringing science, sound, tech, and art together also means focus on performance. So we do, for example, Amsterdam dance event. That's the middle one. Next week, we're doing 3 nights of like parties inside the artwork, where we have a DJ playing as part of an artist residency, working together with a visual artist for 2 months, sending each other visuals, sending each other music, and together creating a huge canvas where people can basically dance in. And then you can also live mint NFTs of the night in real time. So connecting it to the blockchain and Web3. And the last part, the bottom one, is that we do a bunch of residency programs. So we really want to focus also on supporting artists and young makers. So yeah, if you continue, this was a side program. And then one further, this was Amsterdam Dance Events last year. I just brought a bunch of visuals to give you guys an idea what we do.
Thank you so much.
Go down. And then one more. This was also Amsterdam Dance Event. Yeah, so this is an example of where we do research and collaboration with institutions. So we have a lab space where we connect makers and technical specialists and our kind of hardware to young and an up-and-coming talent. So you see these 2 dancers had sensors on their head. They were detecting their brain waves, and the visual art on the screens was connected to their movement and what was happening in their brain. And also the sound was triggered by their movement. So we do these kind of residencies where we give them the space and we allow them to test and learn and fail and just play around for 2 weeks. And museum visitors can come upstairs and check it out. And when the program is finished, they can present it in the big space downstairs. So it's really like we have an exhibition, we have big public programming, but we also have a kind of a space for education, failure, and creation to bring young makers together with experienced specialists. And I think one of the questions that was asked, if I could look in the future and give some ideas or words of what I think is needed in the future in this space. And I think creating a space for experiments is something that we've seen is highly needed because of the use of technology, because it's so complex to make this type of art, because you need to test and fail, you need to program, you need to relentlessly use different types of equipment, different types of software system to test, to make these types of new artworks. And I think giving that space and having enough budget from governments and subsidy providers, I think is really, really key in the future to make these new art forms totally thrive.
Thank you so much, Meryl. And exactly what you said at the end, it's somehow the topic of our discussion. And before going to this, which I think it was thrilling a lot, at least for me, but for a lot of persons here, to see that we are thinking about the same stuff. But before going to the discussion, Piotr, please, you are somehow the most experienced here, because Wrocław Biennial, am I right? It started in '89?
Yeah.
And would you want me to play first the video? It will take me a little bit because it's not very well organized, my computer, but and I'm also not very used into doing two important things at the same time, but I'll try, I'll manage somehow. Is this one? Raw teaser.
Yes, please.
I found it.
Okay, so warm welcome to everybody. I'm going to talk about VRO Media Art Biennale and VRO Art Center, both in Wrocław, which is a city in southwest part of Poland. VRO Biennale was founded by me and a group of my colleagues in end of 80s during the, let's say, first period of electronic or media art festivals. Like a wave in the 80s, they appear in Europe. So now we are Biennale, but also Media Art Center with a regular activity. So both Biennale and the center, they form one organism. I like term organism much better than the word institution, because, you know, we are independent organization. We are non-governmental. We are not, you know, based on the fixed or the budget, but we are, you know, kind of, let's say, smart creature which is, you know, developing according to the changes of environment. So now we are really big organism. Yeah. So it means that, you know, we can attract with the Biennale the audience more than, you know, 100,000 people or even more. So we are waiting with the great names, with the international artists, with also kind of classics. So years ago, I organized exhibition, for example, on Namjoon Paik. You mentioned this great classic, but also with some other prominent artists. But we are working also with the local artists, with the non-institutional, you know, initiatives, with the, you know, trying to show that it's not only, you know, the media art is not only about, you know, new visuality. There is not only, you know, about great works produced using the great budget and, you know, but also it's kind of vivid energy. It's kind of, you know, need to understand what is happening around with our environment, which is both, you know, natural and technological. So many our installations are for public space, different public spaces, you know, big museums, some white cubes, but also some bad places, some forgotten yards, but also prominent places. You see one of the example of the permanent installation, which is presented by us in the city. So important is to work with the different audiences, mass audience or large audience, but several works or several initiatives, are focused on particular viewer, even for one person in one time. Important thing is also for us to build, kind of fruitful relation between artist, audience, art, and institutions. We call this art mediation. Art mediation is really to create kind of important, deep relation, and also art mediation is to help viewers to understand art, but not by traditional means of education that you should to be educated to reach something, but the art mediation is about to accept viewers as they are, and to work with them, on very, how to say, in-depth way. Also, we are working for classics, so this kinetic sculpture, for example, it was a kind of pioneering work by Polish artist Edward Ichnatowicz, produced in early 70s for Philip's Pavilion. It was the first sculpture, so-called cybernetic sculpture. So this is just of several glimpses from our program, showing really different works, really different from traditional video installations, generative art, media art, art and science, socially oriented, and also several works about generative art, big data, flow, etc. Important part of the Biennale and important part of our program is also, how it's not only presentation but also discussion. So a lot of artists are asked, to give public talks, to give workshops for different audience, for from the professionals, students, but also for kids or disabled or people with different kind of these abilities. So you see that the nature is, or the new relation with nature, which is, not traditional kind of relation, but, relation which is important for new environment, which is both natural and on the technological nature. And last one thing is accessible art. So a lot of our documentations and some works are available online. We are also published several books about with the kind of source material to the history and theory of electronic art. Okay.
Thank you so much, Piotr. I was curious if you could let us a little bit to know about, let's say, the emergence of the biennial and then the center. In what year the center was founded?
Okay, so biennial, as I said, was established in '89. At that time we were a group of young people belonging to the underground culture, totally alternative movement with the, mostly based on the punk music or rock music and early approach to the electronic arts, so using, Amiga computers and different, early digital devices at that time, which was totally very rare. So the festival appears in different realities, so nobody has, experienced what media are. So the festival was about the what will be in very soon, but in next future. But when we established VRO Art Center in early 2000, it was totally different reality because, you know, media was not a promise, not a future, but, you know, media, it was, you know, mediated world. So, the Media Art Center is still independent organization, but it's, you know, building in the very center of the city and supported partly from the city. The center is a part of, let's say, network of European organizations, you know, kind of similar organization like our, from, you know, big organizations like Ars Electronica Center in Linz, the very center for the very first initiative for electronic arts, to the other institutions, for example, like wow, I forgot several names of the institution, but for example, like Verkleid's biannual in Germany, like Laboral in Portugal, like Onassis Center, which is Onassis is kind of, you know, ironic name because the Onassis was the Greek millionaire, but Onassis Center is totally independent organization in Athens. Yeah, so we create also kind of, you know, residency program, which is called European Media Art Residency. It's long-term project, so the artists from all over the world can apply for the residency, and residency is, you know, meant to give opportunity to produce new works. So next year, Biennale, which will the name of next year Biennale is fungible things. You probably will feel kind of relation to non-fungible token, yeah, but fungible is, you know, I think flexibility, you know, exchange. It's kind of real base for media arts. The media art is about changes, not about, you know, non-fungible things.
Thank you so much. So somehow trying to give an answer on why a media biennial and then center was needed was first because a group of punksters needed a space to express themselves, which I think it's a very important point of view, very direct. First of all, there is a need for a generation which maybe they are not the first guys which society would tend to think that they would need a space to do art, but they definitely. So, Martin, coming from you, about why do you think there is this need of new media centers or museums, and why are they incompatible, if they are incompatible in your view, with the museums which are Beaux-Arts museums or fine arts museum, or let's say more oriented to traditional mediums?
Yes, this is kind of a contradiction, right? To put these initiatives in a traditional context, and to build a museum around these alternative experiences, right? So I have a growing impression that this collective experience that all these all our media culture based on, like in the Piotr just reminded us that in the 80s, you know, when personal computers became available, and artists, I mean, our generation or the generation before us, when they were in their 20s, they started to explore the creative possibilities of what computer here in Eastern Europe provided us, because we shouldn't forget that the computers were on the so-called COCOM list. So in the 80s, just very basic computers were available for artists working here in the block.
Behind iron culture.
Behind iron culture. And that's how actually the first light festivals here, at least in my country, came from this hippie-ish underground culture in the early 90s. And by the way, this art museum, the concept of this art museum, the investors of this art museum were the members of those groups. They were linked to this underground, to the underground movement. So after like 30 years of history, they just switched positions, and they realized that this collective experience should be musealized in a way. And this is, I mean, that happened already in the 60s in the United States. If we would read this primary source like Youngblood, what is the first name of the Jane Youngblood's expanded cinema, book on expanded cinema. He also describes this kind of I mean what the Woodstock Festival had created in terms of new media and new cinematic experience. What the first manned moon mission, the landing of the moon in 1969. That was also a collective experience. That was the first time that was a telepresence, so to speak, from a different planet, taking place. And there was also a huge projection screens. You would be able to follow, what's happening tens of thousands of miles away from planet Earth. So I think that this kind of collective experience is very important, and the issue is if digital art, new media, and light art will become mainstream, then what new role a museum should fulfill. So this is a very thin threshold between,
museum, you mean traditional museums?
A traditional museum, and also if you are looking for the content and how you aesthetize, put digital art and new media to an aesthetic dimension. So. Because of course traditional museums has a very long history. What kind of art they would accept.
Long or wrong?
Both, I think.
I mean, if it's wrong or it's bad or not, that would of course define the quality of the museum. And the quality of the curators working at the museum, but it's a new setting, that the traditional art museum has to cope with how to put new media art in a fruitful dialogue with traditional media, and this is what actually Piotr just mentioned. This very interesting dialogue between the man-made landscape and the biologically, organically developing landscape, the nature around us. So how we would relate the nature through our new media tools, and what would be the parameters how we can present this very interesting dialogue. This is also one aspect of a new media museum that should really take into consideration.
Thank you so much. So,
May I add something?
please.
Add something. Just to add what Martin said, I'm very much, involved to the perspective of the media archaeology. So the media, or in general, cultural archaeology. So we know now that there is several, phenomena which appears in the history, in culture, and also in the art, which are not represented enough, which was, not accepted by the art world and not accepted by the museums. Yeah? For example, the first light shows appeared during the French Revolution, so which is much longer than the hippie stuff or concert visualization. So, but they were not recognized as a part of art in perspective, of this century. So the media archaeology is trying also to show there is not only one narration about the history, that the history and the art history also is kind of construct, which is both, also political construct, and also using the new media, using the new perspective, using, our sensibility, the new sensibility. We can think not only about, what is happening around, but we can discover really also kind of very interesting, path which is leading from the history. And the several phenomena are in terms of the media archaeology not new phenomena. They appears, in the past, even if the way only kind of dreams or of something which will happen in future.
Thank you. So we have really a strong answer here on why do we need these new media museums, also for validation, because otherwise forms of art and like those punksters just keep expressing themselves and they are not considered. So it's also for validating forms of expression, and that's why we really, I suppose, need this kind of institutions, because otherwise all those works which are also present in the festival, they just stay very, let's say, ephemerical, and they don't show, they don't get to be counted in the impact they have on society and all those media practices. Thank you so much. I think so. We need a place for expressing ourselves, then we need a place for interacting, collective interacting, and it's also, it could be a place for validation, besides the stuff which Meryl already told us, a place for
I also think it's very important to stay ahead of the game. So institutions are normally following, right? So artists are pushing the boundaries, artists are activists, artists are innovating, and museums are always following, institutions are following. And technology is developing so rapidly at light speeds. Like, if I take Web3 as an example, like a week or a month in the world of blockchain is like a year in the kind of Web2 or traditional world. So I think if there's no new media art spaces, then the new generation artists are going to move online and people are going to experience it only virtually. And I think a moment and a space to connect and to actually physically experience it, to create context, to create that kind of historical reference, to give the artists a kind of pedestal and a moment to shine and some insight into the work. I think it's really important, because if you look only online, it's so quick. It's like with music, with Spotify tracks, the first 10 seconds need to grasp you and otherwise it's gone. That's the same in this digital art world. There's all these virtual galleries and virtual institutions being built. And what I think is important is to keep up with the trends, to build a physical space that's connecting digital and physical, and to create a space, a moment for almost like that meditative role of art where you can really connect and disappear in the work rather than disappear in your pixel world.
Thank you so much, Meryl. And we'll shift now, let's say, the topic of discussion. And I wanted to ask you, what are the, like, how sustainable is such a project as the next museum? And what are the key things you need to plan or to do, or how is the activity of the museum financially supported, and what are the key elements of the sustainability process for next museum?
So I think that's a really good question, because we are not a part of the local government. We're not subsidized, so similar model to the Biennale. And we are totally self-sustainable in terms of ticket sales and other revenue models. What we learn is when you want to keep investing in the commissioning of new works and the educational piece and the research and development, there is budget and especially also hardware and brains from the world of new media developers. They are necessary and they're expensive. So I think it is feasible to run a sustainable business, but if you want to keep investing in new work and especially building a collection, that's where some kind of support needs to come in, because you cannot build that purely based on revenue models like ticket sales and potentially merch and some other revenue streams. So the model that we are now looking at is actually using blockchain and Web3 to not be reliant on government subsidies, but actually get your visitors, your community to be able to co-collect with you. So they could buy, for example, a token into the collection. And that's the way an institution can build a collection and keep investing in new art.
And how spread is this practice at the moment? Like, is it already implemented and active, or is it a prospective thing for you at Next Museum?
So we are starting in February with a research project, because I think this is so new that we wanted to wait a little bit to do proper research, not step into the world of kind of NFT and blockchain in the moment that it was a total financial bubble, only led by money, basically driven by money. And now the market is a bit slower. It gave us a lot of time to research, and we want to do it as a test case. So we're going to start in February. We're going to publish a publication, basically. We're going to back this up with two curators, one who's a PhD, who just got her PhD in the world of new media, art, and blockchain. So it's going to be a research, it's going to be a test. And if it works, other institutions could learn from this model and maybe implement this. And it could also horribly fail and not work. And then we've also learned that we need to keep testing, learning, and testing with new technologies.
Fingers crossed for it to work. I'm curious how important is also private support, or like private companies. I know that you have a strong experience in working, I think, with private entities. How important is this for the Next Museum?
So we have Samsung as a partner, which is really important for the business, not because they support financially, but mainly because they support also in delivery and knowledge of hardware. And if you want to show art on the latest and best possible tools, then I think it's a really interesting way is to partner with brands who support that and who can deliver that. And it's been like that since the history of museums, right? There's always been big companies or local brands or local banks, etc., involved in supporting the arts. And for us, it's important that it's a relevant partner when it comes to delivering more than just financial support.
Thank you so much. Piotr, can you tell us also a little bit about the model of the biennial and also of the center? Generally, I think most of the new media museums in Europe, they are private. I think ZKM, which is a center, is the only big example which is let's say state supported, regionally, mainly regionally state supported. Ars Electronica is also
well,
strongly regionally supported, but they are still a private entity in most parts, or at least for the festival and some of the sections. So how is for the biennial and for the center?
You know, we are as a non-governmental institution, and you know, which is working for public benefit. So we have a status, official status of public benefit organization. So it means that we can apply for different, you know, grants from the you know, the city budget, regional budget, and also from the government. So we have last year's maybe much less sources from governmental level, but we are really in the good relation with the city management, because you know the city council really of Wrocław really understand what are we doing, and also you know, we are organization which is how we say, successful with the audience. And so, but also, of course, we are based on European money, on several grants, several, you know, long-term projects. So, and so we are really very actively looking for programs which are which could you know, support our you know, our mission. For example, for our last exhibition, it was kind of response what did happen in Ukraine after you know, the special operation. So we applied to European Cultural Foundation. We described, you know, project, and we very soon got the grant to organize this. Yeah, but in general, yeah, you have. I think that my experience is that you have part of the budget really, you know, settle. Yeah, you have part of the budget, you know, you have to be sure that one part of the budget, even if it's 30 or 40%, it's really important to have possibility to apply for other money, because you need some money, you know, to have some own money to apply for European grants, etc. So important task is, of course, to construct the budget for each year, for each the initiatives. So, and I think it's important to have this ability to construct project according to, you know, the real budget possibilities. So, yeah, this is our model. So it's really not stable model. It's rather very flexible. Yeah.
Thank you so much. changing again the topic, inspired a lot by what Meryl mentioned in her last intervention. I was curious, Martin, from your perspective, which would be, let's say, the key technologies to experiment for new media art in the near future? Meryl was talking really a lot about NFT and the Web3, and what do you think is the, let's say, emerging or most unsettling thing which could happen into the new media? Unsettling in a good way, because unsettling in a bad way, it's to do not have financing. It's very simple.
No, actually, in terms of this new light art museum, which is operating in a test phase at the moment, and as I said, the opening will be next week. The investors choose a very interesting model, which is basically a mash-up between a traditional model and a new understanding of digital art. So they wanted to bring some artworks they own, they have in their collection. They wanted to bring them, they wanted to put them on auction, classical traditional media art, and they wanted to create the NFT version of them and put those to action as well. So you are killing two birds in one stone, in a way, and then you kind of trying to navigate between the two audiences, right? So audiences which are well versed, are more versed in a traditional museum context, and collectors they are looking for some new media artworks and wanted to bring them into their collection. And actually there is another model which is having this very interesting polarized thinking, that of course the Latin Museum is not subsidized by the government, it's a private enterprise as well. But the investors are present in the entertainment sector as well. So they created this very interesting event, which is called Sparty, like spa is the you know, the where there are thermal baths. You can entertain and spend your time and a party. So it's a quite interesting, a very successful model actually, which generates a lot of income. And so let's say that's the popular art, the low culture, the entertainment business, and then the same investors wanted to bring that money to a high art and elite art museum, which is dedicated to new media.
How many investors are in the museum?
I guess 3 or,
okay.
or 4. Yeah.
Just to have a dimension. Meryl, I have, and that's a question I will want to address also to you, Piotr. Well, Meryl, how is the curatorial process or in next museum? For instance, if one of the Romanian artists would want to be part of a next project, what are the roads, or how do you build your program?
So we have 2 curators. One is specialized in emerging technology, Jesse Damiani from the US, and one is Bogomir Doringer, who curated the previous show. We haven't done an open call for the first 2, also because we were new and we wanted to establish ourselves and really find our feet, learn, and build the exhibition that Bogomir has been researching, studying for quite a long time. We might do an open call for the next show that we will be doing. Now we are a bit more kind of in the flow, let's say, which will be a show in one of the spaces that will rotate every 3 months. So that means we will have Bogomir curating a part of the museum, and we'll create one space that is kind of open, more open for open calls, and that will happen every 3 months. So there will be a group of people, including curators and the directors reviewing it. So we don't have government or anyone involved.
So, and if you are aware, like on the process of the curators, are they targeting, let's say, some like artists which are working with some technologies, or what is the process based on?
So the premise is always, for that space, it will be digital art focused. So in the museum itself, we also have 3D printed sculptures or robots and things like that. So more broader spectrum of new media art. But for that space, it will be purely digital art, and it will be alongside a topic every rotation. So it could be that we focus on generative art. It could be that we focus on math art or different types of specific topics within the world of digital art.
Okay. Piotr, how about the biennial and the...
we are part of, as I said, we are part of European network of organization. We are also well known by many artists. So maybe it will be kind of paradox, but I think that we are using a very traditional way of curating, just, meeting artists, traveling, looking for interesting works, looking for interesting phenomena. But I have also to add that in the early 2000s, together with a group of British artists, we developed curatorial software. So we have also, the experience with so-called digital curating, or curating, which is, using the software, to support curatorial process. We of course abandoned this very soon because I think that this sensitivity of to be curator, of to be responsible for the program, to feel kind of responsibility to the artist, to the audience, also responsibility to present the current phenomena, but very often not in direct way, but rather on a reflective way. So I think it's kind of, let's say, traditional way of curating. Just
how does this software work? How does this software? Yeah, I'm curious. How does that software work?
You can find this on the CRAMB website. I think that some of the software remains. It was kind of software which could do some or support some decision. Yeah, so I think that it was kind of interest in digital curating, which appears in early 2000. And it's totally abandoned now.
Before opening the floor for questions from our audience here, I would want each of you to have a kind of a statement regarding the challenges provoked by exhibiting digital or new media art, and also, if possible, in the same statement, which is kind of complicated, but maybe you can take a wild card and fit it in. Also, on what are, let's say, which is the impact new media centers or the festivals you are working on, or directly for society? And you can comment this also, like very simple in terms of numbers, but also in terms of what do they bring to those communities. For instance, for me, it's always amazing to go at Ars Electronica, and I start to think about Linz as being very much owning to the festival in terms of tourism. They occupy all the hotels, everything there, so it's a huge impact at a very direct and very pragmatic level. So, Martin, could you please, or
Yes, I mean the possibilities are basically limitless. I think in digital art, I know it from experience, because even working with Vazarelli, who was not a new media artist, but just a media artist, you know, who never used a computer. He proposed an idea in the end of the 60s. He teamed up with the IBM lab to create an artwork with the use of computer, where the forms and the colors could be perpetuated into the infinity. So it was really an idea to a limitless artwork that could be that has an algorithm, and based on this algorithm, every second for the infinity, you can create a new composition, right? So I think in terms of these new media festivals, which really most of them became a brand, like music festivals all over the world. Every city trying to build their own center for media, their own museum or space for digital media. But what we have to look for is the content. So one of my criticism against these festivals is even Ars Electronica or many other emerging digital art or new media art festivals is
including Radar.
I don't have that much impression of Radar, because I just arrived, and I think Ars Electronica has a longer history than
Definitely. You
Radar.
can make a lot of more mistakes during 50 years.
I mean, everybody's making mistakes. That's I mean, but selecting artworks, curating artworks, and actually with this light art museum, some of the artists created, wrote a manifesto of light art. What you would define light art? How you would define light art? And this could be also translated to the question: how would you define media art? So what are the parameters? What are the criteria? What are the aesthetic quality that who accept that quality? Who are I mean, with a digital software or with a manual work, but at the end of the day, you are the curator. You are responsible for the content, and I think which we have to stress out. You know, that for every event that is dealing with media culture or media art. So I have the impression that most of these festivals, most of the works are only addressing your eye, but not your brain and not your heart. So if you have all the three experiences together, then you have to say that we put something very valuable on the desk, on the table.
Thank you so much. Piotr,
Well, I don't have straight answer, but let me start with the quotation from Oscar Wilde, A Portrait of Dorian Gray. There is a great sentence. I'm quoting from the memory, so maybe not precisely. There are only two important moments in the world history. One is appearance of a new personality, and other is appearance for new medium in art. I think that the media which we are using to express ourselves are really very strongly shaping our personality. And also, I believe that art is the only way, or one of the few ways, to transform or to build personality of, let's say, positive way. Yeah. So I think that media art is not about the technologies, of course, not about the technology on first plan, but it's about the relation between, the cultural personality of the personality which is, created by culture and media which we are using to express ourselves. So I think it's really very important to be not only consumer for the industrial media, industrially create attraction, but to be aware about the creative possibility to new media on the one hand, and the deep impact of which media has on to shape our sensitivity and our personalities. So I think that the art is the kind of reflective tool, to encourage the knowledge about it. And this kind of knowledge is I think most important, for the art and for the developing of art in the future.
Thank you so much, Piotr. Meryl, if you could, and after this we have questions. Yeah. So please think about them, have them ready, shoot them. I'm sure.
All right.
Please.
I'll keep it short, but my statement would really be that I think the future is bright for new media art, for digital art. I think we're in the biggest, kind of most disruptive period that the art world has seen in a long time. You see that institutions are adapting, that auction houses are building virtual worlds. You see that digital artists from all over the world are getting a space to make, to sell, to show their work. I think it's democratizing. I hope that it's going to keep going this direction. But I think if you're an artist, then keep making and sharing and showing your work, and keep testing with new possibilities. And I would say if you're an institution or a gallery, don't be afraid to push the boundaries and show what is out there, because I see an explosion of talent and incredible work with incredible meaning and layers and craftsmanship. So I'm super excited for what's to come actually in this world and in this kind of genre of art. And I hope we can ditch the term new media art, because I think new media is not new anymore. And we should start treating the individual genres in their own right. So from virtual reality to AI art to robotics, etc., and give them all the space they deserve.
Thank you so much. Very empowering what you're saying. And journey at the RADAR Festival, we are somehow, let's say, considering the new media also in the form Lesmanovic was coining it as mediums with which you can interact, but you can also contribute and change the work. But of course, Radar Festival has a kind of inclusive approach because it wants to be mapping the new media art scene in Romania. And then I think it's very important to also give voice to forms of expression which are not necessarily specific to new media, but which are connected. Like sometimes we could have also sections of animation or of game design or of just 3D. But yeah, of course, it's such a wide term that, of course, a lot of initiatives which would focus on some specific things would be important. The festival in itself is very much concerned with immersive spaces, and we have some really nice examples of site-specific immersive works in the festival, and I hope in the next year you'll get to see some of the works here in Bucharest. So we are opening the floor for questions, so if anybody has a question, Chip, thank you. Chip, he is also an artist exhibiting here, and it would be, if you want to address it to a specific guest, please address it to a specific guest, Chip.
Okay, thank you, Alex. So, yeah, beautiful talk, and my question regarding the context of this, technological environment that is really volatile and has an accelerated evolution. Piotr, you already mentioned digital archaeology, but I have a question for all the speakers. What about if you have any thoughts, maybe strategies or program regarding the archivation or conservation of digital and new media art? Because in this context, everything is evolving really fast. New technologies are disappearing maybe in a few years from now. So I'm not able to access an artwork that was produced 3 years ago, let's say. So in this context, if you have any thoughts. Thank you.
So maybe I will try to say some words about this, needs of digital conservation of digital works. Of course, our first website was created in 1997. It's still on the web, but it's not working because whole digital environment changed. So the same with the early net art. It's almost impossible, to reach the real work from the mid-90s, but there is a special website, which is emulating old programs, like a Netscape navigator from the 90s and the other browsers, and it's accessible by the website of one of the first societies of network artists. So this network is rhizome.org. But almost each electronic and digital work create big problem how to preserve this, or the problem which is kind of opposition to this how to preserve, but how to present old works, created for cathode ray tube monitor, how to present it now on, the digital screen. Digital screen will kill, the old works. Yeah. So there are two problems. One is how we can reach the tradition of electronic art, how we can reach, you know, the real value of early electronic works. It's one problem, and the second one is how we can protect digital works, which are, for example, made for the internet, but all programs, you know, disappeared meantime, you know, from the world. But there is a lot of specialized bodies, you know, the laboratories, the archives, dealing with these problems.
Thank you. Meryl, do you have an archive? Ah, okay. I got your message. If you don't, if you can't answer it, no worries. I don't want to.
Great that it popped on the screen. I had no idea. I was messaging the contact. So, are there any questions from this audience?
Yeah,
I couldn't hear the
do you archive the projects, the digital projects, and how do you deal with making them available for the future or for other venues or for other festivals?
So yes, we archive everything. One in publications. The other one is we are now building a collection. So we are acquiring most of the works that we show, and so they can start to travel. We're also building a virtual gallery space for people to just for free online access the works. And this is not exactly in the way they are in a museum, but kind of in a new way to virtually make them as kind of immersive and interesting as possible. So yes, in 3 different ways, actually.
Okay. Martin, I was curious because since you know so much about Kepesh's work, how many of the works which were using software or are still active or can be seen, and how many are, let's say, completely obsolete or to be seen just in documentation? Like
yes. Actually, we are very much coping with this problem at the museum now, because in terms of Kepesh, who was one of the most influential media artists back in the 50s and the 60s, you know. 99% of his works are lost, actually, or torn down. For example, in 1959, he did a light mural in New York, in Manhattan, at the KLM airline company's ticket office, and a whole chapter of Marshall McLuhan's book actually is dealing with this work. However, there are only black and white pictures, no moving images of this particular work, which was created in 1956, and I think within 5 or 6 years, the mural was torn down because it was operating with 60,000 individual light bulbs. And back then in the 50s, you know, in a small ticket office, these very old traditional light bulbs were generating such a heat that during the summertime it was unbearable for the employees, you know. So it was a kind of a rebel against the work, because air conditioning technology was not very good at that time, so that's why the work has to be demounted and I mean torn down, and we don't really know what happened with the parts, and I couldn't find any plans or design descriptions according to which we could reconstruct it. So there are many artworks at the museum from the old generation of artists that are either remakes or paraphrases.
Yeah, that's why it's very challenging for the
But I
art
think
world to see them.
this is what art history is. You know, we have to adapt certain works to the new trends, to the new styles. Even in the case of Michelangelo, you know, at the Sixtus chapel, you know. That now the art historians are blaming the Polish, you know, that it's not anymore the work of Michelangelo, but some Polish restorers who did a wonderful job like 10 years ago.
Yeah. Or Notre Dame, or so on.
Exactly. So we have to adapt, and we have to reconstruct artworks time to time. This is mandatory, I think.
Another question? Please, I'll give you the mic because until it comes from there, it will take some time.
Hello. Which are the main three things the artist should take from the conference? This is a question for every one of the speakers. And second, what's your advice to bring closer the general public to this new form of art? Thank you.
Could you repeat the first one? Because the second was how can you get the audience closer to this form of art? And the first one?
And the first one, the three main things the artist should keep in mind from the talks from the conference.
Like if you have like a go home thought for the artists present here. Like what to take home, like what to think, like. Yeah. But I think for this, the statements which were here were quite inspiring. If you can give more stuff on this, I think it's really nice. But maybe we can answer how can we make new media art and digital art more available for general audiences, or how available is it for general audiences?
I think the only way is working with the audience, but also the interest, the public interest, also very much depend of the program, because you know if you are organizing exhibition in big public space, you can expect really great audience. Yeah, so you know. The content is, of course, important, but you know, from my curatorial perspective, you know, the audience has really, there is not one general audience. There is several groups of audience with different needs and about different levels of understanding or even using or even understanding the technology in their, you know, and with the different experience. So I think important are, you know, small events for, you know, kind of very chamber audience, but also important are big events, you know, attracting the general audience, and maybe, you know, some of the people, you know, attracted with the kind of blockbuster projects, which will came closer to the media art, to the interest of media art. Yeah. But we will see, I think, after during the opening, you know, today, what is in terms of the how to attract audience?
For me, somehow, most of, not always, but in general, I would say that new media art is doing pretty okay with audience. I think the challenges of new media opposed to other fields of art, which of course in some places it's hard to get them, especially if you play some interesting type of music, or I don't know what ever types of painting. But I think for us in the field, the main challenge is to make the financiers come, to make the public authorities come, and for me the main challenge is to finance the new media art, because the audience is hugely eager to consume it. And in Bucharest also, like you'll see, it's a coincidence that we have like exactly this light festival, which has in Bucharest a gigantic public. So it's a huge appetite, I would say, for light art, new media art, and it's basically a lot because of this common common experience, which I think we are completely craving, but it's expensive, and generally, or a lot of times, people are not necessarily thinking that it needs to be paid, because there's a lot of digital and new media art available on the phone and on the like everywhere. So I think those are really stronger challenges. Other questions, or would you want to comment on this as well?
I feel that one big challenge of the media art is, of course, that this is something that you have to plug in, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to the traditional media, and we are living now. We are experiencing this kind of. We have to be resilience towards the economic crisis that we are in now. So I think this is also one task for the media artist, actually, to find new scientific methods how we could make a detour of this demanding energy power that we need to operate these artworks with. And I think there are some artists, they're trying to find these tools. We also exhibiting now an artwork which is using a new type of media, which is becomes elastic through a very thin tinge of light. So you don't need to huge powers to operate this artwork with, and this artwork doesn't have any mechanical parts. So in terms of restoration, it's a very interesting work, because you don't need to plug it in. You don't need to restore it. It uses this new type of material which becomes elastic when it gets enough light, and it creates a very interesting organic form. It's like a new science, actually, that born out, from just using finding these new tools that are available. So actually, that's why new media is new media, because artists are either teaming up with scientists, or there is a new generation of artists. They are actually also scientists, and they keep looking for new materials to work with. So I think this could be the future for new media, for a new media art.
Which I think it's also a term kind of coined around képes, artist as technocrat or something like this, or artist as technologist. We had a question here, and afterwards, if there are more.
Thank you. My question was addressed mainly to Piotr, because he was talking about a new relation between technology and nature. And I was wondering if you think there is still an opposition between technology and nature, and if new media projects are working with natural plants and ecology, or just with artificial nature.
Well, this is a really complex question. Yeah, really complex, because I believe that there is several great artworks or several very interesting artists working to create or working with this new environment, which this new environment showing that in fact we are living in the new kind of environment, which is kind of expanded medium, like this Jean Youngblood expanded cinema, so the expanded medium. So we are several artists who are working not in the particular separate media, but with the environments which are partly natural and partly technological. So in several works there is no opposition, so they are no two contra sides. But of course in the real world we have really a problem with it, and technology, the killing nature. Yeah, so they are two different realities. I think that in this kind of art, nature, science oriented artwork, this is much better vision, for the future than in real relation between technology exploited nature.
Yeah, I also hope that the dreams we are seeing now sometimes in galleries, where technology is completely blending with nature and taking care of nature, or being soft, natural way. I really hope that it will inspire society and make for a future.
Hello. I don't know if Medal is still with us or she left. Okay. Yeah, because of my question, I'm sure. Anyway, because we're here at the festival called Metaverse, I was curious, how do you, and the answer is, the question, sorry, is also for you, Alex. How do you engage with some very recent things happening around us? That means artificial intelligence art, especially the new platforms that appeared and that created a lot of buzz around them, and on the other hand, Metaverse. And I'm not speaking about engaging them in particular works of art, which you already do perhaps, but I'm speaking in terms of strategy of working in your institutions and your own work, and somehow a subsidiary question related to that is if you collaborate with industry on that field or in a different field, but particularly in that field, I'm curious how do you approach this?
No, if somebody read the title of the festival.
I'm not sure if I catch your question properly, but of course this is an issue to create, the dialogue between industry, but it's also not really easy, because a lot of research which is done by the industry is not going to the, let's say, academic discussions. It's not open. It's kind of, let's say, secret, yeah? So in this term, it's almost impossible to independent artists and to independent organization to work with the industry, which is, working on new products. In the 90s, it was several examples of the collaboration between artists and the computer industry. It was very interesting period. It was very, I think, fruitful for the industry because artists came with the absolutely new ideas, which were later developed, you know, on industrial way. But this period is finished. This period is finished. So, in my experience, so I really don't know about, you know, the real collaboration now between, you know, the artist and industry. So the last one, which I really know, is Ken Feingold's role in you know, the shaping in the programs of early artificial intelligence. So it was the artist, which, but it was, you know, end of 90s, beginning of 2000. I think that this is American artists working with the artificial intelligence both as a kind of, you know, represented by digital image, but also mechatronic installations. I think they are still most exciting works with the artificial intelligence, because Feingold at that time had approach to the, you know, the highest existing, you know, version of the artificial intelligence. So now artists are using, or we are only allowed to use, you know, commercial available programs, or, you know, or the public available, but not those which are now in the on the state of developing if the laboratories, because I think they are really deep secret, not open for artists.
And I think soon it will be hard to get also the ones which are paid, because it will be hard to pay, because we will be in the line, like me as an artist, I will have to pay something which also a huge company pays as a service for translation or organizing their files, and they will have definitely a lot more money than most of the artists.
Yeah, I think just to reflect on the previous questions as well and combine your two questions together. I think it was back in the 60s kind of a contradiction, at least at the MIT, where this new, the first media center came into being, the Center for Advanced Visual Studies, that was founded in 1967, that they were working actually with the same industrial companies like Texas Instruments or the Polaroid Corporation, for example, to create new media artworks that were reflecting on the corroded nature, on the polluted rivers. For example, Charles River, in the case of Boston, that was very much polluted in the 1960s. And they were using those industries which created the most pollution on that area, right? So this is a very interesting contradiction and paradox. And in just to reflect on the metaverse that we are using in traditional art museum like the Vasarely Museum. Our last exhibition was on a German abstract geometric artist who is in his 90s. He's very he was the co-founder of the Kassel Documento, actually, in the 50s, and he's using oil or acrylic canvas paintings, so traditional media. And his son is doing, or he actually did, the metaverse version of these paintings. So actually you can walk into Kunibert Fritz's, his name is Kunibert Fritz, the artist, paintings in in a metaverse. And to do that, actually, because the artist was not very well founded financially, so he used the cheapest available coders to do him this metaverse software, which he found actually in South America, in Peru. That was some technical issue, and 1 hour before the exhibition opening, there was a very interesting collaboration between a Hungarian coder, the German artist father, and some coders from Peru. They were doing in many time zones, this collaborative work to make this metaverse functional.
We'll take one more question. I will try also to, if you have one. If we don't have, I will just make a conclusion. Do we have one? And I'll also answer a bit to Horia's questions, because I think there are, it's a thing we are discussing a bit every time we meet. And I got some new thoughts, so I will share them with him, and I would just make a joke. Is DALL-E making us DALL-E? Of course not. But then what is happening is, again, like with photography, it's a technology which is a game changer, not in the sense that it will make more of us artists, but it will just change the perspective. Because me, for instance, okay, I've been drawing when I was a kid until high school, then after computer came, like I forgot a bit how to write, I completely forgot how to draw. And what will happen with drawing abilities of our children, which will just talk to Alexa and she will just draw for them. So it's and it will be drawing something which it takes years and years of really hard practice to start mastering, and if you think about doing it in 3D, then it's, oh my God. So it's all those technologies are definitely game changers, and game changers in terms that they're changing somehow the landscape, and we can't foresee what's happening. Yeah. And regarding the part with corporate, I really emphasize a lot with what Piotr was saying. Again, it's really for the moment, even in the moments when it seems like there is cooperation, because companies tend to have like these kind of flagship collaborations, and they bring somebody. But it's exactly like Piotr is saying, it's for the best a bit of washing out, and it's about promoting themselves. And even for in the case of very important collaborations, like you have with big, huge companies, I don't know, like the ones which are supporting Ars Electronica, which give a decent share of money, and they have sometimes very interesting projects. But again, if you compare with the business value or the pollution or whatever, it's nothing. Do we have more questions? If we don't have more questions, I'd like to thank you so much for your perspective. I'm really very happy with the mix of people we had here, and I think it's really important that we had the occasion to get to know what's happening in neighboring countries, because somehow, sometimes it's a lot more difficult to get to Wrocław or to see the Vasarely Museum than to go to London, because it's like light which attracts a lot of, let's say, people. So I'm very happy with the fact that we really got to find out from Piotr that it's about having a place for punks to express themselves, and also, which is really important, like what to do. You need to have a place to gather where to show your toys and to see how the others are playing with their own toys, and to experience, like, and to go further, and a place to experiment, and a place to have time. And thank you so much for your collection of amazing insights into the works, and also for sharing with us the prospects of the Light Museum Marathon. Thank you so much, and let's give a hand. And yeah.
Thank you.